Hey everybody. Getting ready for bed, in case you can't tell. And yeah, it's been a long day. Monday, of course. Anyway, everybody's been asking for another video, and I wanted to do a short but straight to the point video this evening. And I can't really recall what I came in contact with, who I came in contact with, maybe a conversation, or maybe just a mere thought, but something drew me to this topic of conversation. And actually, what happened was a memory of mine was triggered. And it just came back to me. It was actually a conversation I was having with a young lady at work. And she hadn't came out and said anything on this subject. However, it's a vibe, and it's kind of like a gut feeling that one woman who has been a victim of domestic violence can kind of pick up on with other women. I can't really describe it, but if you've ever been a victim, then you probably know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, this is a young girl, very young, and it triggered a memory with me. I did not grow up watching my mom or dad physically fight. Seeing men put their hands on women was not something I was subjected to growing up. I was blessed to be around real men who carried jobs and respected their women. But anyhow, I was 15 years old with my first serious boyfriend. And unbeknownst to me, he, first of all, he was 17. This was a Hispanic guy in Anaheim, California, where I grew up. And unbeknownst to me, he also liked to snort cocaine. And he was a drinker, yes, at 17. But like I said, he was Hispanic, and that's very common for Hispanic people, especially where we grew up. But I recall we were standing outside of a pool hall, which is kind of a popular thing to do in California, all ages. And we were standing outside the pool hall, and he had a can of beer in his hand. And he looked at me and asked me to open it and kind of pushed it towards me. And I thought he was joking, and I jokingly pushed it back to him and was like, no, you open it, you know. What's wrong with your hand? It's broke. And he shoved it back towards me a little harder that time and kind of had a different tone in his voice and said, open my fucking beer. And I'm still at this time thinking, or at this point rather, thinking that, you know, he's joking. So I push it back. And the next time it wasn't a joke. And it was clear to me because he shoved the beer very hard, the can of beer, into my chest. And when I put my hands up to push it back towards him, he proceeded to punch me in my chest so hard that it took my breath away. And I couldn't cry. So I think I was in shock, and I stood there probably with my mouth wide open and nothing coming out for what seemed like several minutes, but I'm sure it was just about a minute before I shed a tear. And I didn't know how to react, but I didn't want nobody to know. So I remember not going back into the pool hall where our friends were, and I believe my sister. Instead, I turned around and ran away to our apartment complex that was right next door to this pool hall. And I was crying, by this time, like crying horribly. And of course, he came after me and tried to calm me down and swore how, you know, it was an accident and he didn't mean it. But anyhow, I'm saying all this to say that I was 15. I'm 43 now. That was going on back then, and we were keeping it a secret back then. The world was a whole hell of a lot of better place to be in than it is now back then. and it was going on. With the world and society the way it is today, all the drugs and all the different medications and the different environments and the different struggles and addictions and just all the different stresses and worries of the world, the pressures to these young guys, as well as the girls, because like I've said a million times, girls are freaking savages. They're just as bad, especially now more than back then. I believe girls are probably just as abusive, if not just slightly less than these young men. But gosh, these teenagers, especially the boys, have the weight of the world on their shoulders, and most of them without a father. And there's only so much that a mother can teach a boy, and whether he gets it or not is solely up to him and God. But these guys nowadays have the weight of the world on their shoulder, and every little thing seems to set them off. And I'm not saying all of them. I'm just saying, overall. However, sorry, I lost my focus for a second. Stop messaging me. Sorry, guys. Anyhow, I think that girls are ashamed, guys included, especially guys, more so guys than girls, are ashamed to admit this is happening. I think that a lot of the reason, I can say for myself, was that I knew my parents were not going to stand for that, that it would be, well, you're not going to be around him anymore. I would be cut off from him. I didn't want them to know, and then try to tell me what I could and couldn't do. So a lot of it was that. And then with my friends and family, I was embarrassed, and I can't explain why. But let me just say this. I don't want to stay on this for too long. I will come back to it because the guy I'm referencing, his name was Smurf. Very, very, very important person in my life. And I don't mean that in a good way. I mean just as far as how he affected my life overall to this day. But yeah, he was my first serious boyfriend. But anyway, I think that you really just need to pay attention. Sometimes we have to shut up and listen. Just listen. I just recently discovered that with my son, that even though he's screwing up in a lot of different areas right now, I still need to listen to him. He has a lot to say. And when I finally shut up and just listened, I actually learned a whole lot. And realized that a lot of things have been slipping right by me. So pay attention and just listen. Don't always do the talking. You don't have to necessarily be their friend more than their mother, but just listen. And pay attention. You got to be able to weed out the bullshit with these young men. Recently divorced from a narcissist. I will tell you that I am starting to notice that we actually need to be more aware of narcissistic traits with these young men, more so now than ever, because I've seen what they grow up to be. And it's the ugliest of the ugliest. However, just listen, pay attention, follow your gut on things, be able to weed out the bullshit. Don't believe everything that these young men are saying. They're going to try to shower her with gifts and respect you, and it's going to be ma'am this and ma'am that and yes sir and no sir and the utmost respect, but that is their ways. That's their trickery. Be able to still see past that, still keep an open mind, and pay attention, listen, like I said. But you'd be very surprised if you started talking to your kids especially teenagers or early 20s, you'd be very surprised at what's going on behind closed doors that they're not telling you. There's even been some instances with my own family. Excuse me, I'm so tired, y'all. My own family here this last year, that was very shocking to the rest of us to know that this person was enduring these things and did not tell us. But I can understand why. It's not right, but I definitely can understand why. I've been there and done that. So just pay attention, see through the bullshit, and listen. You guys have a good night, and we'll continue about the whole Smurf situation and being a victim of domestic violence. We will definitely be back to visit that. Huge part of my life. Huge part of what's kind of groomed me into being who I am and how I am, rather. So you guys have an amazing night. I'm going to take my tired ass to bed. Thank you. Please subscribe. Show me some love and support. I appreciate it. You guys have a wonderful night. Stay blessed.